Playboy was launched as a creative flyer, if you will. That is to say, my father had this vision. He didn't really have any money. He didn't have any organization. He had this idea for a new men's magazine to be targeted to young men of his generation who had grown up in very traditional families. He borrowed money from family and friends, and he mortgaged our furniture. I was 1 year old. Not once, but twice. I'm not actually sure you're legally allowed to mortgage your furniture twice, but he did, to put all of the money that he could raise into the first issue of the magazine. And on the cover, instead of saying December 1953, because he'd worked for Esquire magazine, he knew that that month on a cover was what told newsstand dealers when to send back to the distributor the unsold copies of the magazine. And his only hope of having enough money to come out with a second issue was to sell enough copies of the first issue. So he thought if he didn't put December on it, they might not realize it was time to send back the unsold copies, and he might get just enough extra days or a week on sale to generate just enough incremental copies to generate just enough money to print the second issue. And that is, in fact, exactly what happened. One of the things that I found very helpful in my organization was a mix of tenure. So we worked really hard to value people who had been at the company a long time, because we felt that they had a sense of kind of the history and the heritage of the company and the brand. And yet at the same time, we were really proud of bringing new people every year into the company who had fresh ideas and different perspectives. And I do believe that that balance in terms of tenure can be very helpful in terms of the mix, in terms of creativity. It's been said from research that there is an ideal number of people in a room for creative thinking, and it's supposed to be 7. I don't really know that this is true, but it's probably true more often than not. But what's more interesting to me than the absolute number is this part of the research. 2 of the people should be absolute experts in whatever the subject is that you are trying to create new thinking around. Conversely, 2 of the people should know nothing about the subject, because, as you can guess, those are going to be the people that are going to throw the wildest ideas out. And then the other 3 are going to be some mix of different kinds of perspectives and different kinds of experiences. I rather like that idea of putting a mix of people together, including being willing to put into the room a mix of people that include those who don't know very much, if anything, about the subject. The single most important thing you can do is put in that room people who have the skill of letting each other talk and listen, and that sort of social adeptness. That's more important than how smart the people are. So you're sitting in a room and you're having a meeting, the goal of which is to come up with some creative thinking about whatever. And someone in the room raises their hand and throws out an idea. And what's the first thing that happens? Someone else in the room launches a heat-seeking missile, which is to say, they find the weakness in the idea and they shoot it down. And the smarter the group of people in the room, the better they'll be at that, and the faster they'll be at that. And what do you think happens after that happens 2 or 3 times? People sort of stop giving their ideas where they think that's going to be the reaction. So what Kava says is, it's really important when people are coming up with ideas that you are non-judgmental at the beginning. I think about a company like Starbucks, which has been mentioned a couple times today. And you might say Starbucks is in the business of selling coffee, but Starbucks would say they're in the business of creating a coffee house experience. If Blockbuster had stopped thinking that they were in the bricks and mortar video rental business, they might have understood that Netflix and Redbox, and now Amazon and Google were their competitors and taken the enormous opportunity they had because they had lots of leverageable resources to move into those other businesses. Instead, they're in bankruptcy. The point is, don't get locked into thinking that the business you're in is the legacy business or the business that is presently the biggest business. Start asking yourself kind of what's the intersection between your strengths, your brand, your expertise, and what consumers want to do and need to do, and where does that take you? Part of what's happening in the world that we're living in is an extraordinary explosion in the rate of change. So if in the past, say when I came into business in the 70s, it was like nice to think about how to foster creativity and innovation, now it's a necessity.